The greatest adventure is what lies ahead. Today and tomorrow are yet to be said.
Hello everyone, this is No One of Consequence, back again with a new video. This is the 16th episode in a series which recounts my ongoing Dungeons and Dragons campaign, which is now in its 9th year. If you enjoy my content, please consider hitting the like button, and if you haven't yet, also subscribing to the channel. So, a spoiler alert, I will be revealing details found in this adventure module. And just as a reminder, this is the current makeup of the adventuring party. So we have 7 player characters controlled by 5 different players. So where we left off last time, the characters were sitting at the inn in the evening trying to decide how best to renew their attack on the elemental water temple the next day. One thing that they did was they hired Farman, who was a hireling whom they had rescued from the fire temple, and they decided to hire him on as a man-at-arms to help them out. Some other things from the last video, some loose ends that I didn't wrap up. You'll recall in the last video they had a bugbear that Varys had charmed and who was helping them out, and he just disappears from the scene when the characters return to town. So what happened to him? And honestly, I don't remember. I didn't have it in my notes. They may have sent him away on some errand or whatever, or they may have just treacherously killed him. I honestly don't remember. But anyway, he's gone. And then you'll also recall right at the end that Garrett had gotten poison from a chest that belonged to the Air Temple priest, and I never addressed what was in that chest. And the answer is not much, a small amount of coinage. And the module says that the Air Temple priest had spent most of his money hiring bugbear mercenaries, and so all that trouble with saving Garrett from the poison chest did not result in a lot of monetary reward for the characters. And then finally, you may have noticed in the screenshot there in the upper corner next to Niobe, there's a small dog, and his name tag is partially obscured, but it reads Sir Kevin III. And it's actually a pet corgi that Niobe, the cleric, brought with her when she joined the party. However, Sir Kevin does not adventure. So whenever she goes with the party to the temple, Sir Kevin stays back here at the inn. So anyway, that's who and what that is. So the characters returned to the temple the next morning. They went back to that same area of the water temple where they had had that big battle with mainly bugbears from the day before. And that ogre that Varys had charmed, and which they ended up having to fight, his body was still lying there. And they knew there had to be another door somewhere because reinforcements kept getting fed into the battle the day before, and it wasn't too hard for them to find a concealed door behind some green curtains in the south wall. And so Thorol cast invisibility on Garrett so he could slip through that concealed door and try to see what lies beyond, hopefully without being detected. So he soon returned, and all of the characters moved into the area. It was clearly the main worship area for the elemental water temple. Just to describe the room somewhat, there it's mostly hidden in shadows, but there on the west wall, there's a multi-tiered fountain. There was a a bronze sculpture of an evil-looking fish mounted in the wall, and from its mouth was a stream of water, which was feeding into a multi-tiered basins there. In the center of the room was a bronze altar about 4 feet tall, and it had a concave basin at the top filled with water. Centered in the south part of the room was this huge 8 foot tall sculpture made out of some greenish stone, and it looked to be made up of coral and seaweed and fish and eels and squid and crabs that were all just kind of mashed together into one single sculpture. And like I say, it was about 8 foot tall. And beyond that, on the far south wall, there were a series of heavy green drapes at the bottom of that alcove. Some other details: in each corner of the room, about 20 feet off the floor, was a stone shelf, and perched on each of those was a stone statue of a gargoyle. And then finally, both on the north and east walls, there on the north wall, just in front of Obrak, was a huge pair of double doors. And then there was another set of double doors on the east wall. So the first thing the characters decided to do was check out those double doors to the north. Aramis and Nio were there, and then Varys and Obrak went to the east doors. But before anyone could really do anything, the doors to the north flew open, and behind it there was a troll carrying this huge halberd, and he was holding a chain with an owlbear with a collar, an iron collar. And as soon as the characters opened the door, the troll released the owlbear and ordered it to attack the characters. And then, of course, you can see the other characters scattered about the room. So the battle was on. As I mentioned, that troll had a huge halberd, and he tried to attack Varys with it and promptly rolled a fumble. And you can see the result there on the screenshot. And he dropped his weapon. But the characters were not able to celebrate too much, because Varys, who, if you'll remember, now has that flaming sword that he got from the Fire Temple, he promptly rolled a fumble too. And you can see the result there. It went flying off in the distance somewhere, and you'll see the results of that in the next screenshot. However, Nio, you see there's a natural 20 there. That was Nio. She was attacking that owlbear and scored a critical hit on the Nio, on the owlbear. So Varys' flaming sword, you can see it there at the very top of the screenshot. It went flying, just like yesterday. It went flying way off in the distance behind the enemy. So now Varys, his main concern is getting back there so he can retrieve his sword. And meanwhile, that owlbear attacked Obrak, and both claw attacks hit, which means, if you're familiar with the monster, it means that the owlbear gets a hug attack as well. So Obrak took some significant damage from that owlbear. So in this screenshot, another troll suddenly appeared. It was this huge. He quickly became referred to as the Mega Troll. He came out from behind those curtains in the alcove to the south, and he immediately ran across the room to attack Thorol and Farman. He ran past Garrett there because at this point Garrett is still invisible. He hadn't made any aggressive action, so he's still invisible. So the troll ignored him and ran up to Thorol and Farman. Farman, I have in my notes, Farman scored a critical hit against the Mega Troll, and Garrett tried to sneak up behind it and do the thief backstab attempt, but unfortunately his attack roll failed. But since he made an attack roll, his invisibility was dispelled, and now he's in the fight. There is a critical hit there on the screenshot that I rolled, and that was the troll with the halberd. And I don't know who it was that he hit. It might have been Varys or it might have been the Sergeant Major, because you'll see on the next screenshot both of them have really low health bars. And so, yeah, there you can see both of them are very low on hit points. But Varys had retrieved his sword, that flaming sword, and ran up and tried to attack the troll. But then he rolled another fumble, and you can see the result that he got, hit an ally, but there is no ally within range, so he inflicted damage on himself. And as you can see his hit points there, he actually put himself in the negative hit point range, so he's down on the ground and starting to bleed out and is in danger of dying. In this screenshot, Aramis was trying to help attack the Mega Troll, but he rolled a fumble, and the result was he tripped and fell down. So things are not looking good for the characters here. Next screenshot, Obrak ran around and was going to try to administer a healing potion to Varys. You have to remember in BX, combat rounds are only 10 seconds long, so when characters try to do multiple actions in the same round, I usually will make them do something like, in this case, a dex check to see if they're able to accomplish it. Because Obrak was wanting to dodge between the monsters, run up to Varys, take out a healing potion, and pour it down his throat all in the same round. So I made him do a dex check, but he failed. So he got up there, but he was not able to give Varys the healing potion this round. Meanwhile, Niobe is fighting the owlbear by herself, and that troll with the halberd is fighting the Sergeant Major, and he actually knocked the Sergeant Major down into the negative hit point range, so he's now bleeding out. In this screenshot, the Mega Troll scored a critical hit on Aramis, and in one attack round knocked off about half of his hit points. So that was bad for Aramis. But on the plus side, Obrak was able to give Varys a healing potion, and that put him back in the positive range and got him back up on his feet. So after taking that massive hit from the Mega Troll, Aramis used a holiday gift item. As a reminder, this adventure session took place early in the year. Christmas had only just recently passed, and so the characters had Christmas gift items. And so Aramis used this snow globe of defense. You can read the description. He dropped that snowman right next to the Mega Troll to help. It might draw attacks from the Mega Troll. They would otherwise be directed against a character. But then he also ran over to help Niobe with the owlbear, because at this point she was the only one fighting it. And then Varys ran down to try to heal the Sergeant Major. I guess he had a healing potion or something, I don't know, because the Sergeant Major is bleeding out. So Obrak was trying to distract the troll while Varys was going to try to heal the Sergeant Major. Moving on a little bit, finally with Aramis and Niobe and Thorol had moved over there too, they finally were able to take down the owlbear. But both good and bad. In this screenshot, you can see there's a fumble there. That was the troll in the northern passage. He rolled a fumble, so he tripped and fell to the ground, which bought the characters a little bit of time. But unfortunately, the mega troll attacked Farman, and of course, just being like a 0 level hireling, he didn't have a lot of hit points. And so the mega troll just flat out killed Farman. He was dead. So now only Garrett is down there trying to engage him. In this screenshot, you can see a critical hit from Obrak as the troll in the northern corridor was trying to get back up from his trip. Obrak scored a critical hit on him and inflicted some good damage on him. Meanwhile, Varys was able to get the Sergeant Major back on his feet. In this screenshot, the Mega Troll had turned around and began attacking other characters. And in this case, it was Garrett. And he managed to put Garrett into the negative hit point range, but then he rolled a fumble of his own. And so was unable to finish the job and kill Garrett outright. In this screenshot, Niobe ran over to Garrett, and again, this is not long after Christmas, so Niobe had some of a Christmas gift item of this eggnog of healing, and you can see in the description it is 2d12 plus 2 points of damage, and you can see the results that she rolled there at the bottom of the screenshot in the chat window, and she rolled really well, and so that got Garrett back up to full hit points again before he bled out and died. In this screenshot, Obrak and the Sergeant Major and Varys working together finally managed to take down that troll in the northern corridor with the halberd. So he was down, and having had previous experiences with trolls, they immediately set about burning the corpse. Varys has that flame sword, so that was easy to do. However, the characters suddenly came under a spell attack, and the result was that Thorol there next to the owlbearer got hit with a hold person spell and failed a saving throw, and so now he's paralyzed. Next screenshot, in the northern corridor, they set the troll's body on fire to keep it from regenerating. The Sergeant Major ran down to help fight the Mega Troll, but he promptly came under a flurry of attacks and died. He took so much damage, he wasn't just unconscious and bleeding out. He dropped to the floor dead. Garrett, meanwhile, aware of the spell attacks, figured it had to be coming from behind those green curtains to the south, so he ran down there to see who it might be and was confronted by a total of 3 human priests of the elemental water temple. There were 2 under priests and the main priest, and one of the under priests stopped to engage Garrett in combat, and then the other 2 ran up into the main room to help fight the characters. So again, the characters have they're tired of these hold person spells, and they know how bad it can be, so it was time to deploy the big guns. Again, just following Christmas, one of the Christmas gift items that some of them had received was this thing here. You can see a snowball in hell, and it's a mini fireball. And this particular one belonged to Obrak, and he's up there in the northern corridor. And the range is 50 feet, and that those 2 water priests there at the bottom of the screen were just in range. So Obrak through that and blew that up on those priests. And then, meanwhile, Niobe, you can see her health bar is dangerously low. She had been taking attacks from the Megatroll, and she also had one of those snowballs in hell items, and so she stepped back and threw it at the Megatroll and detonated it on him. And then finally, in the same round, Aramis still had left over from the previous Halloween one of those flaming jack-o'-lantern items, and he took it out and threw it at those two water temple priests as well. So after all the fire and smoke had cleared off, the one sub-priest was dead. The main water temple priest and the Megatroll were both still alive, but they were both badly hurt from all the fire attacks. And then Garrett was fighting that other sub priest and managed to inflict some damage on him, but he was still in the fight. So on this screenshot, the Megatroll attacked Varys and knocked him into the negative hit point range. So he was down on the ground, unconscious and bleeding out. And Aramis had run up to fight the main water temple priest. And when he saw that happening, he called out for his, quote, pets to attack. And when he did so, the 4 gargoyle statues on those shelves in each corner of the room, they all animated and swooped in and started attacking various characters. And I don't have the chat window in this screenshot, but the main water temple priest, using a melee weapon, scored a critical hit on Aramis and did triple damage. And then also one of the animated gargoyles attacked him as well. And so all of that damage combined left Aramis with only a few hit points left. And this screenshot, a gargoyle had flown up there to Obrak at the top of the screen and inflicted, gargoyles get 4 attacks per round, and he inflicted enough damage on Obrak that put him into the negative hit points. And then there is a gargoyle also attacking Niobe as well. In this screenshot, Garrett rolled a fumble and hit himself with his own weapon. And then there was a gargoyle plus the water temple under priest all attacking him as well. And he went down into the negative hit point range. The head fire temple priest, he had taken enough damage where he ran away. By now, Aramis was in the negative hit point range. So the head water temple priest was able to break combat with him, and he ran back down behind those curtains to the south. So everyone is down now except for Niobe. So what she was planning to do, she ran down to where Aramis was. He was the closest. And also had lost a few hit points. So her plan was to give him a dose of the eggnog to try to keep him from dying, but she also still had left over from Halloween one of those pumpkin carriages, and so she was going to try to evacuate, at least save Aramis and evacuate them out, and there really wasn't anything she could do for anyone else. But if they at least could get out, then hopefully they could get help and come back and maybe try to rescue the others or recover their bodies, whatever. But everything hinged on the characters winning initiative in the next round of combat. Unfortunately, the characters lost initiative, so they're in that northern corridor. The Mega Troll scooped up Aramis, or I'm sorry, Thorol, who was still under the hold person spell. Scooped him up in one arm and grabbed up Obrak, who was unconscious on the ground and bleeding out. Grabbed him up in his other arm and took off running to the north and disappeared into the darkness. And meanwhile, those gargoyles, there were three that all flew over and swarmed around Niobe. And again, since each gargoyle gets 4 attacks per round, so between the three of them, that's 12 attacks. And so it did not take them long to put Niobe into the negative hit point range, and so she was down as well and bleeding out. So at the conclusion of this battle, just going from top to bottom, off screen, you had Obrak, who was unconscious and bleeding out, and Thorol, who was under the hold person spell, were grabbed up and carried off by that Mega Troll. You had Farman the hireling, he's dead. Varys was on the ground, unconscious and bleeding out, and beneath him was the Sergeant Major, who was dead. And you had Aramis and Niobe both down and bleeding out, and Garrett down there in the bottom corner, who is unconscious and bleeding out. So yeah, overall, does not look good for the characters. All right, well, that's all I have for now. Thanks for watching. If you haven't, please consider subscribing, hit the like button, share the video, leave a comment. It's all good. I appreciate anything you can do. Thanks again. Bye for now.